Welcome to The Hindu editorial discussion. This is Ryan Pinto, who will be discussing the editorial of November 19th, 2020. What are the topics that we are going to discuss? We are going to discuss three topics today. The first topic will be judiciary and equality, the recent happenings in the judiciary, the controversial bails. All these we'll be discussing in this editorial. The second one on urbanization. During the time of COVID, we need to make some changes so that such disasters or such pandemics does not repeat and it does not affect many of the people. And third is the role of government, again connecting with the COVID-19 and the economic crisis before as well as during the COVID-19. So these are the three topics that we are going to see. The first topic on judiciary. As we know, judiciary is an important part of democracy. It is one of the three important pillars, the other two being executive and legislature. Now, recently, what has happened is a lot of criticism has come up against the judiciary, that it is working for the government, where it had to. The main work of judiciary is to limit the power of the executive so that it does not encroach the fundamental rights, and it works for the equality of the citizens. But you must have seen in the current situation, the judiciary is seen not to do all this. So let's see about what is the situation and what can the judiciary do. Amid a judicial slide, a flicker of hope on rights. Recently, we had the case about Arnab Goswami and D.Y. Chandrachud, who was the judge of the Supreme Court, had given some observations and let Arnab Goswami out on bail after giving those observations. And it is those observations have to be seen on hope on rights. It is reassuring that there is a signal from the Supreme Court about thinking and speaking about personal liberty. In the observation in the Arnab Goswami case, he was D.Y. Chandrachud was talking about personal liberty. He gave this decision on Arnab Goswami's bail on his birthday. Last week, Justice D.Y. Chandrachud on his birthday did precisely this when he remarked, "We are a constitutional court. If we as a constitutional court do not lay down law and protect personal liberty, then who will?" It was very heartening to see all this. A ray of hope came that Supreme Court does stand for the rights. But there is a catch, or there is a problem in this. The statement was made during the hearing that concluded in granting interim bail to TV anchor Arnab Goswami in a matter that was listed a mere one day after the petition was filed. This is arguably the first time that an accused has moved both the lowest and the highest courts together. So, when we are seeing this, it should be very heartening to see that the Supreme Court is coming for the fundamental rights. And not only that, in one day, this matter was listed, and also, first time a person is moving both the lowest and the highest courts together. In 7 days, the whole matter was covered. The Supreme Court working in such a breakneck speed is really a very good thing to see. This is what is expected from the Supreme Court. But is this the same to all of them? That is the question mark. The larger concern here is the decision of the Supreme Court to offer barefacedly Mr. Goswami special treatment of an order that ordinary citizens of this country cannot even dream of. So the point is, The way they have worked is expected. They should be doing this. But is it for each and every person of this country? That is the matter of concern. The entire process, starting with original application at the Sessions Court in Alibag to the High Court in Mumbai to top court, was concluded in a total of 7 days. The extraordinary speed at which judicial system seems to have worked to entertain Mr. Goswami's plea is one thing to note. This case has now become a textbook example of what power and influence can do for you in this country. So, this is an example of what power can do, influence can do. In 1 week, things can work for you. This is what this case is showing. The executives and the judiciary's actions. The performance of judiciary has deteriorated to disappointing lows. So, in the recent times, we have seen the judiciary has not stood for the fundamental rights. The judiciary has not taken a stance where they had to talk about equality for the people, fundamental rights, and stand against the executive. It no longer stands on the pedestal of chief protector of freedoms. The government has done so much damage to the personal liberty, but the courts and especially the Supreme Court has watched this indiscriminate and often literally violating, trampling of dissent like mute spectators. The government has done a lot of damage. They have they have influenced the courts. It is alleged that they have influenced the courts, whereas the courts during the time they had to come and help the people, they have stood like mute spectators. Now the examples are also there. The examples of students and teachers made after the Delhi riots, unconstitutional citizenship amendment act, in the persecution of veteran public intellectuals and social justice leaders in the wake of Bhima Koregaon violence, in the blatant disregard of the case of the political detainees in Kashmir. So, the writer is giving examples of Delhi riots, Citizenship Amendment Act, veteran public intellectuals in the Bhima Koregaon violence, and detainees in Kashmir, the political detainees. In these cases, the Supreme Court had to come with the same breakneck speed and had to speak for the fundamental rights. The 83-year-old Jesuit priest and tribal leader, Father Stan Swami, who is suffering from Parkinson's disease, has been arrested in connection with Bhima Koregaon, requested to give a straw and a sipper in jail. Instead of granting him immediate relief, which would have been most appropriate humanitarian response, the NIA court gave the prosecution 2 weeks to reply. So when he just asked for a sipper so that he could drink water or other things, NIA has given the prosecution 2 weeks to reply. Whereas in case of Arnab Goswami, in 1 day the bail was given and 7 days it took from the interim from the lowest court to the highest courts. Will it be there for each and every person in the society? That's the question mark. Elsewhere, the Supreme Court had earlier refused to entertain the petition of a journalist from Kerala, Siddiqui Kappan, who has been detained without any basis in Uttar Pradesh for over a month, directing him to the lower courts instead. So Siddiqui Kappan is there in the court in the jail for over a month now, and his the reason he is put behind the jail is, or the reason he has been put UAPA, so unlawful activities act has been put on him. It's the for trying to report on the Hathras case, on the poor girl who was raped. To report on that, Siddiqui Kappan, a journalist from Kerala, has been put in the jail and is not being given bail. So that is how our courts are working. Bail application. In its April 2019 decision, the NIA, so you must remember this case, the NIA versus Zahoor Ahmad Shah Watali on the interpretation of the UAPA, that is Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, the court essentially created a new doctrine that an accused must remain in custody throughout the period of a trial. Only in case of UAPA, right? You have to remember the court can the accused must remain in custody, should not be given bail throughout the period of trial, even if evidence against the person is eventually proven inadmissible. The Supreme Court said that in considering bail application under UAPA, courts must presume every allegation made in the FIR to be correct, and the burden rests on the accused to disprove the allegation. Now, this is very dangerous. The NIA versus Zahoor Ahmad Shah Watali case. How our judicial system works is innocent until proven guilty, means you have not done anything, the prosecution has to prove you guilty, but here the burden lies, so it is guilty until proven innocent, so burden lies on the accused. The Supreme Court's interpretation was on the UAPA alone and not on general criminal procedure, but it has left a glaring loophole for rampant abuse by the government, police, and prosecution. It has now become commonplace for dissenters to be charged with sedition or criminal conspiracy and under the UAPA. So now, because of this, if anything, if the government has if the government wants to stop the dissent, the government does not like a particular person, they can just put UAPA. So that is how dangerous this is. The bitter truth is that personal liberty has been relegated to the background in Indian jurisprudence today. A recent study in the Indian Express of 10 cases involving free speech that were heard by the Supreme Court earlier this year revealed that the court gave relief only when the state and petitioner were in agreement and refused to do so when the state expressed objections. So, again, repeating, the Supreme Court's main duty is to limit the power of the state against the fundamental rights. But what is the Supreme Court doing? Indian Express has the report by recent study by Indian Express says 10 cases on uh, freedom of speech and expression, 10 cases where the state is in agreement with that person, the person has been released or given on bail, whereas if he is not, then they have been put behind jail. But his observations comes as a ray of hope. So D.Y. Chandrachud, with such breakneck speed, giving such observation, comes with a ray of hope. It is reassuring that there is at least someone in the Supreme Court thinking and speaking about personal liberty. As custodians of Constitution, this is bare minimum that the Supreme Court judge should be doing. Could it that be could it be that the sentinel on the QVW is slowly coming to life? Now, this article was written by Justice Ajit Prakash Shah. He is the retired Chief Justice of Delhi and Madras High Courts and former Chairperson Law Commission of India. So very interesting observations. He is seeing the whole situation with optimism, and this can be a precedent, and everybody else who are in the jail for various reasons of dissent can be now released like Arnab Goswami. The second thing is urbanization. The second article that we are going to see is on urbanization. This article talks about how cities are so important, and during COVID 19, we have an opportunity to reboot everything, to re energize our cities and make it a place where people can get work and improve their economy. Plus, we also are concerned or taken care, we are also taking care of the climate. Reinventing cities. A new urban development plan paradigm should focus on cutting disease spread. What was the context? Why are we studying this? This has to be in urbanization, GS paper 1. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's call for a reimagining of urban planning and development to make cities and towns healthy and livable after COVID 19 reflects the reality of decrepit infrastructure aiding the virus spread. So, two things here. We have to reimagine the urban planning. The reason is Prime Minister's Narendra Modi's call to reinvent the cities, because the infrastructure that we have, the cities that we have, are actually aiding the virus's spread. We'll have to focus on economy, that's the first basic thing, but also health, also infrastructure, also we need to focus on climate. Bloomberg New Economy Forum, he emphasized resetting the mindset, processes, and practices. So, for reinventing, what we must do? Reset the mindset, processes, and practices for safe urban living, and acknowledge that the governments actually do little for working millions. So, as we know, cities are engines of growth. Cities have pulled out many poor people out of the poverty line. Cities have helped people fulfill their dream. Rapid transmission in Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, and Chennai was the inevitable outcome of densification and an inability to practice distancing norms. So we had seen during time of COVID, the cities were affected the most. Reason is density, and secondly, could not practice distancing norms. In globally recognized Dharavi, which is one of the highest slum densities in Mumbai, epidemiologists attribute a seemingly low viral impact to screening and herd immunity. So initially there was a scare of COVID 19 in Dharavi, but Dharavi has done remarkably well. What was the reason? Because of the low viral impact to screening and herd immunity. He likened it to the post war reconstruction plan. So, what we can do is what Narendra Modi is saying, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is saying is, after the COVID 19 is over, the way all the cities were revamped, all the areas were revamped post war, post the World War. Okay, so that way we can improve our cities. That is the post World War reconstruction plan. So, what is the conclusion? Good affordable housing is the cornerstone of sustainable and healthy city. So here one of the focus has to be good and affordable housing, but it also represents India's weakest link. Mumbai is estimated to have added only 5% of rental housing in the new residential construction, and that too led by private funding. The post COVID 19 era, therefore, presents an opportunity to make schemes such as the center's affordable rental housing complexes deliver at scale, focusing on the new good houses built by the state. Our cities are being made unplanned. There are so many slums which are rising, and these slums do not have proper uh, facilities, no drainage, no proper water. So, good and affordable housing is the cornerstone so that we can handle these disease spread, and people's lives can be saved and quality of life increases. The Ministry of Housing, which has thus far focused on a limited set of expensive showpiece smart cities, could work on this imperative with the states. The Ministry of Housing can work on this because Ministry of Housing currently, according to the article, focuses on only few expensive showpiece smart cities. It can meet the states and speak to the states and help the states in most almost all the cities, digitally aggregating and transparently pushing data on demand and supply of for each city, It also it is also an open secret that laws on air pollution, municipal solid waste management, and water quality are hardly enforced. So, how can the Ministry of Housing help? It is by aggregating and transparently publishing data and demand and supply, etc. So, where is the problem? The problem is on air pollution, solid waste management, water quality. There is hardly any work done. As sewerage, waste handling, social housing, and healthcare that reduce diseases. Governments are now challenged by the pandemic to show the political will to reinvent cities. Now, governments have to take up the challenge and show political will and reinvent the cities. So, in this we urbanization we focused on the affordable housing, and since Narendra Modi's focus is on reinventing cities, these or this can be a question in the mains. So the next thing is maximum government, role of the public sector. Public sector is very much needed during the time of COVID-19 because of the crisis, people not having money, many people have gone below the poverty line. So the role of the government increases in giving education, health, infrastructure, in increasing economy. But is our government doing that? That is what we are going to discuss in this article. The current crisis has provided us with an opportunity to rethink our health, economic, and climate policies. In the new set of relief measures, so we have a new set of relief measures announced by the finance minister. Job creation has moved to the forefront, and yesterday also we discussed a lot of unemployment and a lot of economic crisis in the country, and first time we have during elections people speaking about unemployment. So finance minister has spoken about job creation. This shows that the government has finally accepted that unemployment rates are very high, a fact that it has been suppressing or dismissing. What hasn't changed to our dismay is the government's core belief in minimum government. The other day we had seen the article. Every year 1.3 million government jobs used to be added. Since 2014 it has gone down to 0.4 million, which ties it so minimum government which ties its hands when it comes to fiscal measures even in such harsh conditions, created to a great extent by its own lack of governance during the COVID 19 induced lockdown. So, the minimum government is the concept of minimum government is to control the fiscal measures. So, instead of the fiscal stimulus, we are doing fiscal consolidation, that is spending less. Since no jobs, so they don't have to give the salary, and the government does not have to spend much. So this you have to remember. As a result, now what happens of that lockdown, Indians got both a COVID-19 induced health crisis and in attempt to control it, a severe economic crisis. So India is facing an economic crisis as well as the health crisis. If you look at these relief measures announced in the three tranches, Atmanirbhar 1, 2 and 3, take Atmanirbhar 1 for example. Out of 20.9 lakh crore package, 17.9 lakh crore worth of measure were below the line ones, such as credit guarantees, liquidity easing. So out of the 20 lakh crore which the finance minister announced, 17 lakh crore was credit guarantees and liquidity easing. Things are not very different in other two tranches as well. In Atmanirbhar 2 as well as 3, it was almost the same. These measures are made on assumption that they will induce business sector to start the virtuous cycle of investment and induce household to increase consumption. So will credit guarantee, will loans increase consumption? That's a question mark. Increase investment, again a question mark. Let's see. Corporate investment is limited by sales and or by credit. So if there are no sales, if there is no demand, there will not be sales. If there is no sales, there will not be the corporates will not invest. They will not, because why will you, when there are so much of resources and those resources are not getting used, why will the corporate put in more money if there is no demand? If the demand does not exist, the loans doesn't matter. So, however detailed the credit package may be for MSMEs, in times of deep economic crisis, they will not deliver, as they will be wary of taking more loans. And for the household, why will they take loan? Because if they are not, if, though the loans might be cheap, but if we do not have a surety that we'll have a proper income, the you people will not be taking loans. Same with the banks. They are very scared of giving loans because it might lead to an NPA. If there is a cloud of doubt over future incomes, they would not be inclined to take more uh, consumer or housing loans just because credit is easily available. Moreover, even if there were takers for these loans, if the banks are burdened with bad loans as a result of past decisions, they may be wary of releasing credit. So, what we need to do? It is to create the demand. Let's see what the writer advises. Such credit lines, guarantees, or the low cost loans therefore hardly have any effect on reviving the demand in the economy. So, this helps in the supply chain side. But to improve the supply chain, first we should increase the demand. These actors can at best play a supporting role, not the lead ones. What does this mean for the magnitude of the stimulus? So let's see, the foremost demand from which others follow is that FRBM should be kept in abeyance. So we need not worry about uh, the fiscal act, regulation act that was made. So fiscal regulatory and budgetary management act which was made, that should not be worried about, both for center and the states. And the government should inject a fiscal stimulus. Fiscal stimulus is pump in cash in the economy of at least rupees 10 lakh crore and borrow to finance it, or required, if required, monetize it. Monetizes means make new notes as the RBI. The stimulus could comprise, among other things, free ration and other essentials like oil, soap, cooking gas for period of 6 months, cash transfer till employment opportunities are back, and urban employment guarantee law. Spend our way out of this crisis by building robust health infrastructure on principle of public provisioning instead of walking down the insurance route. Rather than, the other day also we discussed, rather than talking about the insurance route, let the public health infrastructure or public hospitals take care of people. Opportunity to think about climate change. As we discussed, climate change also needs to be thought about. The crisis has provided us with an opportunity to rethink of health, economy, and climate policies. It will be good to remember that the future generation will never forgive us for losing an opportunity to fundamentally change course. So these are the three editorials we spoke about. First is on judiciary, that is on polity. Second editorial was on urbanization, and the third one was maximum government. Remember, the art and science of asking questions is the source of all knowledge. Thank you.